And today I want to share with you the journey of Adidas, the evolution of Adidas through the last 10 years and the role that I had when I was working as the lead art director there at Sid Lee, when we were having the Adidas Originals global account. So before getting into that, I'll make a quick introduction about myself. I'll try to skip all the agency's work because I think you can find that information on LinkedIn, so I don't want you to waste that time on that. So I was born in Mexico, where I got my Mexican accent. The only thing I failed to do was to grow a mustache. I must be the only Mexican with a mustache. And when I was finishing my graphic design degree, I moved to Barcelona. And in Barcelona, I spent 13 years there. And I gained a girlfriend, but also I lost my Mexican accent. And that's something that she hates because she says that I'm, together with not having a mustache, I also don't have Mexican accent. So she says, like, I'm just a fake one. Anyhow, after 13 years there and already being on the advertising world, I was getting a lot of trouble because I was not finding like more detailed offers in the on advertising. So I decided to move to Stockholm, where I joined to the Hyper Island program for the interactive art director. So I spent almost a year with this bunch of amazing people. And when I was about to finish, I got an offer at Sid Lee because they were just about to build the digital team to lead that global account for Adidas. And you can guess like how in the world a Mexican that doesn't have a mustache, that doesn't have Mexican accent, would at least avoid to go to Montreal, where it's like the average temperature is minus 40, minus 32. This is a photo of the first day of spring. I was going for a run in the park, and this was my reality for 6 years or for 6 months or so. But the reality is not. I mean, I love cold. You can see that is not the reason why I left Montreal. It was just because I was missing my people. So after spending a year doing these stupid things, I ended up going to this side of the world. And for the past 4 years, I've lived in London, like enjoying this politics. So let's just forget about me now, and let's just start about the presentation itself. So there are like 3 different areas that I want to tackle today that I think there is like really strong intertwine. So the first one is about how Adidas has been nurtured by and nurturing pop culture. The second is about the transformation of Adidas. And last but not least is about the importance of finding your own voice on a saturated market. Okay, so starting with how Adidas has been nurtured by and nurturing pop culture. You see, before advertising, I was coming from, oops, sorry. I was coming from a designer background where the only thing I was focusing on was on typography, on colors, on movie titles, on color palettes, and everything related with design. But at the same time, the main heroes that I had was like Saul Bass, who was the mastermind behind some of the most emblematic movie posters, film posters, and also movie titles, as the Vertigo before, or David Carson, who was another amazing designer behind like the design of great magazines such as Ray Gun. Susanna Leacock, that was one of the 2 founders of Emigre magazine, and I could say that she kind of created a new wave of typography in the 90s, like these ones, or Vaughan Oliver, who is the other mastermind behind the most iconic album covers of the 80s, the 90s, and the noughties. And they were all shaping the aesthetics of a generation. But that time also, MTV was the main channel to consume music and music videos, the same channel to see TV programs as Beavis and Butthead. And UX and UI were not even a thing. So you can get an idea of how old I'm getting. But despite all the respect and love I have for design, for some reason I was not feeling that was fulfilling me. So after a lot of thought, I decided to give it a try to the advertising world. And almost since day one I started on advertising, I was hooked by the work that Sid Lee was doing for Adidas as a brand to tell a story. Because Adidas has been one of the few brands in the world that they really tap into culture, and that brings us back to the decision of why putting this title for the deck, or for this presentation. Sorry, it was because I don't know, like lately, tap into culture is something that you read everywhere. Like when you and go to the website of whatever agency, it says that they create advertising tap into culture. When you go to the profile of any creative, you read like, I do insight based in tap into culture. And when you get every goddamn brief, you just get as well. Sorry, you also get the first phrase is that whatever thing that you are doing needs to be tap into culture. So it's getting so overused that we are missing the point about what tap into culture is. Okay, and for some reason, well, for many reasons that I will be talking about, Adidas is one of those few brands that they are genuinely doing, because Adidas has been a social symbol for a long time, and it feels like a continuous dialogue that on one direction they are nurturing culture, but at the same time they got nurtured by the culture that they are surrounded, and in that way they are reshaping the brand all the time. So I don't know how much you know about it, but like in the 60s and the 70s, Adidas was a fashion statement for the subculture of skinheads in the UK, the good skinheads, not the bad ones. They as well, they as well were definers of the hip hop era in the States, having Run DMC as one of the leading talents there. They have dressed political icons. They have dressed cultural ones, even though that we might not like him anymore. They managed to create icons, but which brands would be able to say that they transform an icon into a shoe, right? Like, I don't think that many brands can say, okay, we transformed a person into a shoe. And this is the case with Stan Smith. But more recently, what they've been doing is start to breaking those boundaries between what is fashion, what is sports, what is culture. And that's what they've been doing, having this musicians that start becoming fashion designers, such as Pharrell or Kanye West. So, give me a second. Despite, and one of the reasons why I'm giving you a little bit of that context about the designers is because despite the completely different approach that Sid Lee was doing with Adidas, they were doing and they were reshaping the aesthetics of a generation in the same way that, let's say, Bogan Oliver was doing when he was designing the album covers of almost 3 decades. So either as a designer, either as a madman, or either as an artist, we need to be aware that what we are doing and the work that we are doing is just a cycle that it goes halfway when we are consuming things that we see, but on the other hand is when after we eat that, we digest that, we ended up throwing up back to the world in whatever the shape of the profession that we are passionate about, and that's how we are closing the cycle. The second part is about the transformation of Adidas over the last years. So for the purpose of this talk, I have divided this transformation through 3 different eras. The first one is the pre-2013, then 2013 as the year 0, and then post-2013. And the reason why I'm putting it this way is because of 2 main factors that I think they are crucial in the evolution of the brand. The first one is about how they have evolved with the visual treatment, and the second one is about the channels they use to communicate, hence how they are interacting with their audience, okay? So for each of these 3, I'm gonna be showing you 2 different examples just to make it clearer. So let's start with before 2013. So when they started, these were the years when before I joined Sid Lee, and they were working really close with them. Sid Lee has been known, or was known at least, for creating amazing film. They were collaborating with directors such as Romain Gavras, and they were really clever in the way they were bringing in those cultural icons, such as in the case of the famous Cantina ad. So I'm gonna play it now.
Hey, we don't serve their kind here. You're droids. They'll have to wait outside.
I heartily agree with you, sir.
Who is this guy? Who is this guy?
Han Solo. I'm captain of the Millennium Falcon.
Bartender. What's your problem?
He doesn't like you.
I don't like him.
This little one's not worth the effort. I don't like you either.
Well, I don't like you either, fool. Oh, you want some? Step up.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon? Okay, you guys got yourselves a ship.
Oh.
Una puta. Marakam tidak makicita. Jaba wa ninchiko babushai kaitani wa nyaruska. Togu ni punya nyaruwa ika kushu. Erja yakul kaiti kulikutua.
All right, we'll check it out.
Wasn't me.
So what they were doing, like together with this one and the next one, that it's the second one is the one filmed with directed by Romain Gavras. You can see they're telling a story with a more classical way of narrative, but at the same time, the whole pictures were like super polished, clean. There was like more like what we were seeing in terms of narrative and how you were telling a story, with no textures, with no crazy colors, with no glitches at all. And the main channel that they were using for that by that time was just TV. That was the main channel. Maybe YouTube, because they were kind of starting, but not necessarily. So the next one, it was this one is from Romain Gavras. As you can see, like they're focusing a lot on the editing. They're focusing a lot on the sound design. constant in the way that they collaborate with different talents. They have been using them since long time ago. But as you can see, when you start seeing all these two films, again, what I was explaining was like the way of showing this, it's in a really neat and clean way compared to what happened on 2013 that I call the year zero. And why I call it the year zero is because I think at that time, that was the year where Adidas decided, okay, we need to do something to start understanding the new channels. That in this case was through internet. So they were asking us to bring in all that internet language. It couldn't be as neat and clean as they were doing before. So the first of the two campaigns of 2013 for spring summer was this one. That, as you'll see now, they were already start bringing all this new language, everything that now we see everywhere with Giphy, and everyone is communicating with GIFs. That was something that we wanted to bring in as soon as they said, like, okay, we want to be more interactive. So this is the first step. And it feels kind of it feels just as an introduction, already bringing in new elements that you see. But the first one, it's still kind of like, it's still the heritage of the previous years. When it's about editing, when it's about the editing of the that they are doing, you can see still the past there, but then they start bringing new elements.
Swish.
This was the first step to bring in this internet language, okay? And you can see through the colors, through the textures.
Step inside, step inside, step inside, step inside, step
Basically,
inside.
this was another film. The only difference with the previous one, that this was conceived more like a music video, in opposite to a 60 seconds film that was what they were doing before this year. In this case was, okay, let's do a music video, and at the same time let's bring in all that internet language. But then the second season came, that it was a collaboration between 8-Track and Run DMC. Run DMC, they were known that they were about to be reunited, so we saw that a big opportunity because of the relationship that they have had with Adidas in the very beginning. What I was explaining, about the collaboration that they had back in the days within the New York scene of hip hop. But at the same time, for the first time, even though that Adidas has been pioneering in the approach that they do, the other part that was really interesting and challenging was, for the first time, Adidas said, like, we don't want one more film, which was super new for us and also really challenging, because one of the things why Sid Lee has been known to be good at is to make good films. But they said, you know what, we don't want that anymore. That is the only thing that we don't want you to do. So what we did was to team up with Google. We were the first brand to leverage the voice recognition API with Google. So what you're about to see is just, of course, just a video of how it ended up doing. And then there will be some slides where I explain a little bit what happened. But basically what you were doing with this, while you were playing this video, you were interacting either with your voice or with the keyboard. So basically everything that you were shouting to the screen was triggering different animations. So what we did was we had like all the live action, that is all the New York part behind, but if at the moment that you were saying 8-track, it was activating the 8-track animation there. Otherwise, you wouldn't see it. So.
I ink a deal with Adidas, my pinky stinky with stones. Now that was back in the day, now little Diggy is grown. Man, I was hot in the 80s, still I'm hotter than you. Had a rose in a rollie and run with roll in a room. Rock Adidas and Adidas, the sneaker leaders for years. You can say what you wanna, but my Adidas is here. D the king of the rappers and even king of the hood. Had a list of his wishes, he wish a whack rapper would. Man, I was winning and grinning and wasn't taking no L's. Jay was rocking the wheels and we was rocking the shell. New York to Philly got illy, rocking harder. Did the spectrum, then left it and went and ripped up the garden. A tire flyer, no higher, like 40 Benz in a Jag. XNA rapper alive, the Rev invented the swag.
All day I display amazing style. Everything I say will make the crowd go wild. Jam Master J, give me chance by the pile. Put me in my Adidas since I was a child. I'm in my pro models that I model like a pro. I go full throttle, I'm a lot like Jericho. I'm Adidas down from my head to my toes. Even when I'm in the gym, it's the 3-stripe show. White superstars with the 3 black stripes. I'm like a god when I'm rocking this spike. The greatest MC in all the arena. The best sneakers in the world is the brand called Adidas. In case you forgot. Me and my Adidas always standing on top. We're all hip-hop in all of the sports. The man on the beat is a...
So basically with this one, what we managed to do were like activate like hundreds of animations. So, oh, sorry, I forgot about this one. This is a local activation because the markets had 2 different options. On the one hand, they could either have the long format that was the original one with Run DMC and 8-track, but also they could have their own activations based on the local market. So this one is for Japan. It's a short one.
리믹스 너무 어려워요. 모두의 도움이 필요해요. 여러분의 반짝이는 영감으로 사진도 영상도 그림도 해시태그 Unite with 21 달아서 올리면 되거든요. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram 어디든지 go!
So as I was telling you before, we collaborate with Google, that were our partners to do to use their API for voice recognition. And what I was explaining before, while you were watching the video, you had like all this timeline below, and those diamonds that you see are the ones activated. So if you at the moment that you were seeing this guy in the basketball court, if you were typing or shouting basketball, you would activate DMC below when he is like as if he was spinning the ball. And he was like, the whole video was about that, and that allows us to give, and let's say to get personalized, so to speak, experiences, because each of us, we would be activating different things as every journey was a different one. So you can see like the different examples that we were having and how that was affecting your timeline. At the end of it, you would have your unique timeline based on all those activations, and at the same time you could get extra content like from animated GIFs, pieces of video behind the scene, and of course, as every brand, they wanted us to drive people to the e-com. So in that way, also the clothes that they were related to your activation, to your trigger animations, they would be part of your timeline. We created a lot of animated GIFs that were as well to be shared and ended up like being on back in the days on Giphy as well. But then the second challenge that we had, believe it or not, even though that it was 2013, for some reason we worked with a Sting Digital as the production house, and for some reason they managed to convince the client that we were doing that on Flash. And I know it sounds crazy because it was 2013, it was not a year for keep working with Flash, but anyway, they did it. But that compromises how we were going to do a mobile version, right? Because we were kind of losing half of the market for all the iOS users if we were having on Flash. So what we did was came up with a solution that was to some extent emulating the same experience that you were watching on the video. So on the first screen, you can see that in the center is the store of Adidas, By the way, that is the by using GPS geolocation. Sorry, what you were doing is locating yourself in relation to the store. So you start walking towards the store, and while you were walking, you were activating different animations. You were getting more behind the scenes work. So if you were, again, like what we were trying to do was to create something that feels unique. So if you were having whatever route that you were deciding, you would have a different one if you choose a different path. So post 2013, oh, sorry, I was forgetting two important things. As before 2013, what we were seeing was that everything was film related. It was all about TV, and the whole aesthetics was clean and lean, right? In the second, on 2013, they do this big switch to interactive digital, but at the same time we need to be consistent on the channels that we were using. Hence, that's why we ended up like bringing all this language, this broken image, and the typography as well. So after 2013, it feels as if they had put together both of them. They brought like all this clean imagery together with like this kind of like more trashy, glitchy design that I think it feels related to a lot of fashion brands that they are doing as well as Calvin Klein. So I'm gonna put this one that this is from Johannes Leonardo. Sid Lee ended up losing the account, and now they moved with Johannes Leonardo, that is an agency in New York.
I'll never go down your road. I find my way on my own. I'll never follow your path. I'll make mine and I won't look back. I'll never go down your road. I find my way on my own. I'll never follow your path. I'll make mine and I won't look back. I'll never go down your road. I find my way on my own. I'm never gonna fall in line. Your future is not mine. Your future is not mine.
So the last example that I'm putting from Adidas now is this one, that it feels more related to what I'm explaining with all this glitch imagery, but with all these clean parts as well. This is work of Johannes Leonardo as well. But if you see, it's really interesting because Snoop Dogg has been used as well in one of the first videos that I showed.
One of the greatest of them all, Dog Sinatra. In pocket with the rocket, I cock it, I gotcha. All in amazement, flipping through my pages. I live my life lit up, lighting up these stages. Ridiculous, outrageous, greatness contagious. Still on top, looking ageless. I plan my play, then scheme it out. Draped up, caked up all day, I dream about. Protected my position. I did it my way, no provisions and no permission. Listen. Figures I figured that you figured this out. Snoop Dogg and I'm back in the house. Superstar Snoopy hard in the paint with the flow. Adidas on my feet, high top or low. No matter where I go, I get a check in the plane. When you speaking on me, dog, put respect on my name. Worldwide with the heat life. I was brought up in the street life. They love it cause I does it with them 3 stripes. The big drum beater, gotta stay G'd up. Me and my Adidas, yeah, this important. No Jordans, no.
Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I was hard, more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I
the only way. You dig?
Okay, so I think it's pretty clear how that they have evolved, going from something that was TV-centric, clean design, to something that feels way more internety and not that clean. So the other part that they have been changing, something that I was telling you at the beginning, was they've been really smart on how they get nurtured by culture and how they are nurturing. And they've been smart enough to, in the same way that at the beginning they were with the TV as the center, then they move into internet. In the way that advertising is transforming, we now see that advertising itself is not working as we had in our heads until, I don't know, 5 to 10 years ago. So the way they are doing, and the way they keep being relevant to the audience, is by start having collaborations that it's kind of like blurring as well, not just the blurring between the profession of, I don't know, like Pharrell Williams, from musician to becoming a fashion designer, but it's also the blurring the boundaries between what is advertising and what is just a different ways of interacting with people. The same thing happened with the super clever move they did with Kanye West. So to finish this talk, I think also it's really important to talk about the importance of finding your own voice on a saturated market. And the reason why I'm telling this part, even though that is not necessarily about Adidas anymore, is because in the past years, since, like, if I go through my portfolio, half of it is about Adidas. But also, for the good and for the bad, I get offers to collaborate with different brands. But the bad part is every time that I get hired for a different freelance, what they tell me is, oh, I really want you to do what you were doing for Adidas. And that is putting the brand that you're working in a really bad situation, because at the end of the day, what you need to do is to find that voice and to be recognizable, because otherwise you will start getting loose among these different brands. So I'm going to put you just one more video. I put two, but I'm just going to put one. Otherwise, I think we're running a little bit of time. Not this one. I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to put this one. That basically, this feels as if the director was just cutting and pasting a lot of videos from different brands and just putting them together. And I'm not saying it's not well crafted. I think it's beautifully shot. But the problem, it doesn't feel true to what they're doing. He's copying literally a lot.
You browse through it every day. Like places you've never been to. Follow people you've never met. Share moments you've never lived. And save things you've never owned. This is not the real world. The one that you, I, and we are watching on this screen even now. Look at yourself, the one in the reflection of the screen. I am you. And I'm telling you, the world is bigger than the palm of your hand. You can walk it all your life and still not see it all. You can go where everyone goes, go where no one goes. You can do things you don't talk about, blend in where you don't belong, leave a mark on the world, and let the world leave its mark on you. S7, make photos come true.
So two things here. The first one is basically is just, again, as I was telling you, basically just copy paste from different films from Adidas. The second one is like, for God's sake, it's talking about an airline. It has nothing to do, like, that is not the way that you keep relevant to your audience. So for me, the takeouts after all this that I have shared with you, the first thing is about understanding your audience. I think that is crucial. If you want to if you want to be bought, if you want to be loved, if you want to be liked, if you want to be played as a game, whatever you are doing, you need to understand your audience. Otherwise, whatever you are doing, you will get, again, as I was telling you, you get lost because people won't recognize you. And let's face it, it's a really saturated market. The second thing is about don't follow a trend that is not genuine enough to your brand. Like the example of these airlines. Just because the new trend is about using glitches and using saturated colors, that doesn't mean that has to be related with your brand. And if you don't do so, like people won't trust in you. So that is a second part that is really important. And because of this, of the first two, you need to find your own voice to stand out. If you find it, people will like you more easily than they just see you just copying other brands. And that's pretty much it. Thanks. If you want to keep in contact, all the details are in the website. Thanks. Any questions?
Hi, thanks for the amazing talk. You were talking about finding your own voice.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've seen many brands do lately is they get political. How do you view that?
I think it depends a lot on the brand. I think there are like some brands that they are genuine, and it takes us back to this, that it's not necessarily about following a trend, but something that feels true to what you're doing, right? So 2 examples about it. The first one is like a brand like Patagonia, for example. Patagonia, the other day I was listening to an interview that they were doing to to the founder, and he was like, he loves what he does because of what he does. So he's not asking you to be, he's political in the message that he's doing, but it's because he believes on that. It's not just because it's a trend. But on the other side, if you have someone as Pepsi try to bring in the shitty work that they did with Kendall Jenner, it's like, makes no sense. Like people, you will get flashback, right? So I think it will depend a lot on your brand. It's not necessary, well, at least from my point of view, it's not that you can't or can be or need to be political. I think it depends a lot on you. Like, I don't know, like my brother, for example, he's a photographer, okay? And if you see the advertising of Dove for the past 10 years almost, they've been doing about like no shame about your body, right? But for the last 3 projects that he has been involved with, he says like it feels as a bad joke. Like in the same shooting, I need to show a lesbian couple, one girl that has no leg, one that are like, is like, come on, you don't need to be inclusive if it doesn't feel genuine. You know, like it's not about just having one specific type of people, but it's about like if it feels real, what you're doing, just do it. But people won't love you more just because you are adding one more person that is not included in the mainstream thing. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, this is a great answer. Thank you.
Staying on that topic around diversity,
yep.
I'm curious, like I personally found the Adidas videos awesome. Like, thank you for sharing, but they're very male-centric. Did you ever find yourself trying to convince like Adidas or propose that diversity? Or maybe I'm just off, like back to their brand, but I find that a lot of females wear Adidas products.
I think maybe it's the selection that I picked, because what I was trying to focus was more to represent that transition that they have visually, and also how they've been using different channels. But I get your point. I think Nike, for example, has done it in a better way compared to Adidas, to your point. But also, and I would answer something similar to this, like I think it needs to feel genuine, right? So in the case of Nike, they did this one amazing one for Nike India with all the girls, that is this music video. I love that one. And it feels relevant there because India has a lot of issues about how they see women, but they don't do it in a way that it feels fake. So I think it depends a lot on the brief that you get. Like if the brief allows you to, I think a mistake is just trying to keep doing with a white male as the average, to your point. But also, I don't think it's the right thing just to go to the other extreme and just try to put this thing as if it was a collection of rarities. You know what I mean?
Did you find yourself ever recognizing that they might want to expand from male-centric to female-centric and bring that to the client?
No, not really. No, they've been at least with the work that I did with Adidas. Most of my work is for football. So football, you like it or not, is male-centric. But in the case of Adidas Original, this was my main project, the one that of 2013. And in that case, basically, it was because Run DMC, as artists, they were the ones that they were coming back, and that was strategically was really important. But no, I haven't actually. Because they are, in the case of Adidas being German, in the case of Nike being American, in both cases they are really aware of as a company. I mean, and that's something I like, and that's why I feel comfortable working with them. Is because you can see both of them being super conscious about it. So I don't know, maybe it has been unfortunate because of the ones that I put, but I get your point. But honestly, I haven't feeling in that way. Actually, you need to be, if you start going as a creative, if you start putting on your mood boards a lot of images, let's say of white males, they will say, what are you doing? I'm not seeing variety. So it would be, to be honest, it's more them saying like, hey, be careful. We want to be inclusive rather than we needing to push them, which I like.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. Yep, that's it. Cool.
Do you have time to show the Nike video that you skipped? And tell us what you were going to talk about with it.
Sure. I don't remember how it's spelled. Bling. No. Nike, India.
Wake up in the morning, all systems on go. Cause I got goals and I won't take no for an answer. Got the grace of a dancer, the heart of a panther. I don't understand you. It puts in your vocab, I cannot quote that. I want this so bad, I cannot go back. I cannot back down, I will not give up. You versus me, huh? I say good luck. You don't want this problem, cause I don't do it unless I go full throttle. And I might throw it on Instagram, just to show you what the difference is. For instance, I'm up with the roosters, outrun the runners, outshoot the shooters. Look in the mirror, hey girl, let's do this. My only competition is myself. That's why I keep some trophies on the shelf. Never lazy cause it's bad for my health. Da-da-ding, da-da-ding, bada boom, bada bang. Now let's go. 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 Da-da-ding, da-da-ding, da-ding. Game on, about to do my thing. Guess who stepped in the ring? The last one left in the ring. Can't lose cause I work too hard. Ab game like, oh my god. Boss chick, my pull-up game is so sick. Don't think I lost it, I'm just getting started. It's time to sweat. Another rep, another set. Oh yeah, another lap, another mile. About to turn up the dial. I'm in the gym making me proud. Then I'm on the track holding it down. Know where my girls at? Let's go on and show the world that anything they could do, we could do better. Just do it together. And fellas not part of the plan. But if I fall, I'ma stand again. Play hard cause I ain't worried about getting a 10. I'm still just a beautiful man. Da-da-ding, da-da-ding. Let's go. 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 Let's go.
So yeah, I think going back to what I was telling, like what they do, it feels true to the brand. Like Nike has been all the time kind of like pushing people to believe in themselves, and they are not kind of judging because of who you are, how is your body, but it feels real. It's not that they are doing it this because of a trend. It feels as something that they truly believe in. So I think it's a good example to what we were talking before. Well, thanks.